So this morning I thought I would share a little bit about the instruction from the Buddha that I drew from the basket after our event on the January 1st, where everybody involved, everybody who came got their instructions, and then I decided to pick one for myself, and I love it. It's from the Middle Length Discourses. And the instruction goes like this. In every case, it's not always printed on the little slip of paper, but it's where the Buddha says, thus should you train yourself. And it says, I shall be easy to admonish and make myself easy to admonish because I honor, respect, and revere the Dhamma. And that's in Majjhima Nikaya 21, section 10. And I love it because of the reason. And it's so true. It's like, first of all, being easy to, admonish might be a hard word, but be easy about receiving feedback. What people perceive or think, or their views of us or our actions. And of course, there can be feedback that's really, what I want to say, in tune with the reality of what we're doing, saying, how we're acting. And there can also be feedback that has really nothing to do with us sometimes. And it's interesting to look at that, but I want to focus more, and this instruction focuses more on how we take it in. Could you? Oh, Adrian's got it.
Yeah.
So I want to read the paragraph to you. In this Majjhima Nikaya number 21, this is the simile of the saw, which it's a wonderful sutta that's quite well known. And if you haven't read it, I recommend it. Number 21, as I said. And there's a whole story here that the Buddha tells about this maid who is working for this lady who's got the reputation to be really kind. And this maid kind of tests her by getting up late in the morning. And the lady is very angry with her. And then the next day she gets up even later and there's more anger. And by the third day, she hits the girl on the head with a rolling pin or something. And her head is bleeding. And she's like, she's not all that kind after all.
She's running out in the street
telling
neighbors,
hey,
I
love neighbors. That's the story. And then the Buddha talks about the monks. And of course, it's apropos to all of us. But he says, so too, bhikkhus, some bhikkhu is extremely kind, extremely gentle, extremely peaceful, so long as disagreeable courses of speech do not touch him. But it's when disagreeable courses of speech touch him that it can be understood whether that bhikkhu is really kind, gentle, and peaceful. I do not call a bhikkhu easy to admonish who is easy to admonish and makes himself easy to admonish only for the sake of getting robes, alms, food, a resting place, and medical requisites. Why is that? Because that bhikkhu is not easy to admonish, nor makes himself easy to admonish when he gets no robes, alms, food, resting place, and medical requisites. But when a bhikkhu is easy to admonish and makes himself easy to admonish because he honors, respects, and reveres the Dhamma, him I call easy to admonish. Therefore, you should train thus. We shall be easy to admonish and make ourselves easy to admonish because we honor, respect, and revere the Dhamma. That is how you should train yourselves. And I love it because I know that that's the reason, to really be willing to listen to whatever feedback we might get so that we can really change. And we can also develop our discernment about the accuracy of what we're told. Because of course, we have our own perceptions of ourselves and our own, our actions are also mixed with our own intentions and all of that. And we can feel like I'm really doing my level best, or I'm really working hard at being good, or I'm trying very hard, or whatever. And a lot of times I know my conditioning, my habit was to respond right away, to explain myself, because it felt like if I explain myself, then they'll understand that I'm not really doing anything wrong, or I'm not really blah, 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 whatever, right? So I learned, especially in the training as a monastic, to just be quiet and listen and really take it in and really turn it over in my mind, and to really try to put myself in the other person's position to see how they could see it that way, the way they see it. And it can be very, very revealing and helpful. Even if at the first glance or the first hearing of it, it sounds like it really doesn't fit. It may well be something that is important to learn from. And the fact that we hold this attitude because of this reverence and respect of the Dhamma. It's like we want to live our lives in accordance with Dhamma in every possible way. And through that respect and reverence and that faith in the Dhamma, that's why we want to take in whatever indication of an impression of us, or a result of our actions, the impact of our speech or our actions that we can possibly gather, so that we can really let that go deep inside and change. And it can be very challenging to do it, because nobody wants to hear negative feedback about ourselves, because we're usually leading with the sense of self and not the Dhamma. So this is another opportunity to really scour off that sense of self that wants to appropriate everything and maintain that persona, and really let the Dhamma be the fundamental principle of our life and the shaping of our character. So even when I read this quote, I feel the joy and the inspiration of the Dhamma. And if we can take any instance of that kind of reflection from anyone about what they perceive in this light, then of course we also bring in the wisdom to know when this reflection or this feedback we're getting just isn't about us. That also happens. And we don't have to be defensive about it. We can just know, and we can maybe see what's going on in the other person to understand where that's really coming from. But we don't want to jump to that conclusion lightly or quickly, because sometimes there's just whole areas we're not aware of, and we want to make sure we're investigating. But there are always those times that we might be hearing something that really is based in something the other person's struggling with, or maybe unaware that they're projecting their perception onto us. So, when the Buddha had this happen, and it's also good to remember that no one escapes criticism, not even the Buddha. If the Buddha was criticized, how can I imagine that I'm not going to be criticized? Sometimes correctly and sometimes incorrectly. So when that happens, I think it's good to take the same stance that the Buddha took, like when, many of you probably know this story, there's a series of suttas. I can't remember, I think it might be in the Anguttara Nikaya, but I don't really exactly remember, but it's a series of suttas where this one man comes to the Buddha and he's inspired by the Buddha and he gets ordained, and he happens to be of the Brahmin caste, and then he gets ordained, and then one of his relatives hears that he got ordained and he's really angry about it, and he comes to the Buddha and he's just blasting the Buddha with all of this anger and criticism, and the Buddha is just calmly listening to this. And then the Buddha asks him, do you ever have friends over to the house? Of course, this guy's probably completely disarmed, not the reaction he would expect after being very abusive and scathing in his speech. And he says, well, yes. And do you prepare food for them and, nice treats and things? And, well, yes. And what if they don't accept your food and goodies? Who do they belong to? Well, they belong to me. And the Buddha said, well, I'm not going to accept what you're giving me here. It still belongs to you. And there's a little more to the story, but the upshot is this man also gets really inspired and ordains. And there's another one yet after that, I think, or this story goes on. But it's like, there's also that knowing when the feedback really applies and when it doesn't. And also knowing when there's an opening or an opportunity to express that back to the person or not. I really appreciate the Buddha's training of the monastics, that we don't teach or hopefully give advice when it isn't asked for. No unsolicited advice. And that can be a very hard thing for people to, that can be a very difficult principle to observe. Because when we have an opinion, a lot of times we want people to know about it. And so just keeping that in mind, even if someone has given you harsher or incorrect feedback, reflecting on whether or not it's actually going to be useful, helpful, appropriate, or necessary to explain that to them or not, whether that's the right thing or not. So it's part of my reflection on my instructions. And I'll be watching for opportunities through the year. Usually when you live in monastic environments, you get plenty. So you don't have to, there's no.
I had to say, Ayya, you're the best at this already. I don't think you need this. We've had other bhikkhunis too, when we have the end of the rains retreat and there's Pavarana time, you give each other feedback. She's the best to take it back. The other bhikkhunis have remarked about this. It's like, this is a thing. So I think you need a new one. Something else. We already got this.
Maybe I just get to revel in the honor, respect, and reverence that I have for the Dhamma.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe. Yeah, so I'm wondering if anyone is interested in having us select an instruction for you. I think everyone in this room's already gotten one. And yes, Patrice.
Oh, Patrice.
Okay, this one over here is the best instruction. Yeah,
It's random. Okay, are we doing Patrice?
Patrice.
Patrice gets ooh.
Ooh,
Patrice. Oh, sorry. Yeah. I know, we just reuse them. It's all good. It's all good. Yeah, so Patrice says, I will dwell with a mind devoid of conceiving. I will dwell with an imperturbable mind. I will dwell with the mind devoid of palpitation. I will dwell with a mind devoid of proliferation. I will dwell with a mind in which conceit has been struck down. That's from Samyutta Nikaya 35 to 48. And you and Adrian can chew on this together, Patrice, because he also has this one. And it sounds pretty intense.
Well, it's great.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
Adrian sent me a message, which I can't seem to find right now, but I liked some of the other words used in the translation. And this is a really, I know you've been practicing a long time, Patrice, and it's very good because this one is going to be very useful. Did you write down the reference by any chance? It's Samyutta Nikaya 35, number 248. And these instructions are really taking it to the full degree of the mental training. My mind devoid of conceiving. So really letting go of making things out of things. The mind being, what was the word, Adrian, for imperturbable? Like undisturbed.
Yeah, undisturbed.
Mind being undisturbed. The mind being devoid of
trembling.
Devoid of trembling. So this is really, really training meditation. The mind can really be settled and not disturbable, really. The mind devoid of proliferation, so not adding things and going into a story and building it up. I really like the last sentence. I will dwell with a mind in which conceit has been struck down. We've been talking a lot about setting aside the sense of self as a way of life, which is what the usual way of life is. We're all about me and mine. And when we set that aside, when we start to sift that away, that's what conceit refers to in the Buddhist teachings. It might be the conceit of I'm better or I'm worse or I'm the same, but it's this idea of I am this individual personality. I have this persona. I have this identity, and we operate from that, and we try to protect that, and we try to promote that. And this instruction is to strike it down. I love that, because there's this beautiful softness and gentleness, like some people say how much kindness there is in this community, and it's true. and the love that we have for all beings that we develop and all of that. But the Dhamma also has this definitive nature, this I can't find the right word, hard, clear, determined aspect to it. You know what's true, you know what's not true. You're striking down that conceit I am. Very powerful. All right, Patrice.
You and Adrian are getting enlightened this year. Go!
That's right. We want to hear later.
Yeah.
Okay, Nora?
All right, it's this one. Okay, so you should train like this. We will get the essence of the meaning, the essence of the teaching, the essence of freedom. That's how you should train.
Wow.
In Gutra Nikaya, the Book of Ones, number 347. Yeah, that's a good one.
You see it?
Yeah.
I'm going to read it again. So you should train like this. We will get the essence of the meaning, the essence of the teaching, the essence of freedom. That's how you should train. Wow. To really going to the core. And so every Dhamma teaching, every time, when the Buddha talks about listening with your whole heart, with your whole mind, and then really look, what is the essence? What is the real essence here? What is the meaning? What is the essence of the meaning, the essence of this teaching, the essence of freedom? Because every Dhamma teaching is about freedom, ultimately. Freedom from dukkha, freedom from the defilements, freedom from entanglements. Yay. Do we have a pen? Could you get us a pen? We'll put your name on this one, Nora, so we know, in case you ask us anything later.
Adrian's putting it in the chat for everybody, so that's great. Yeah. Okay, Holly, you get, I will dwell contemplating feelings in and of themselves, ardent, clearly comprehending, mindful, having removed longing and dejection in regard to the world. So Anguttara Nikaya 863. Yay, feelings are just feelings, yay!
Yeah, so this, of course, is like the way of contemplating feelings that we see in the four foundations of mindfulness. So this is from Anguttara Nikaya 863, not from the suttas not from anyway, you'll see it. Take a look. There are other instructions in that sutta as well. But I will dwell contemplating feelings in and of themselves, which means we're not adding anything onto it. Feeling's just a feeling. It's all the stuff we add onto it that makes us suffer so much more. Feeling's just a feeling. Thoughts are just thoughts. Perceptions are just perceptions. Because when you really just pay attention to the feeling, pay attention to it in the body. Notice where you feel it in the body. This was Holly? Mm-hmm. Okay. And this idea of having removed longing and dejection for the world, that's the way we're instructed by the Buddha to begin the foundations of mindfulness practices. So we start by settling ourselves and letting go of whatever's been attracting us in the world, whatever we've been repulsed by, and just letting go of all that, setting that aside for the time being. Of course, when we finally let go of all of the desire and aversion for the world, we're enlightened, fully enlightened. But as we practice learning how to set it aside. as we practice. All right.
Hey, Marilyn. Oh, you got the same one as Mimo. I will arise a keen sense of wise shame and fear of wrongdoing. Hiri and Ottappa. Samyutta Nikaya 1611.
Here you know, to the guardians of the world.
Yeah. Who's that? Marilyn.
Oh, Marilyn.
Yeah.
Great.
It's a good one.
You know that one, don't you, Marilyn?
Yeah.
I always thought that if I ever had a tattoo, that was what it would be.
Oh.
Oh, it sounds like a great idea.
I'm not sure a tattoo is a great idea, but anyway. Thank you.
Maybe some henna. Oh, great, Marilyn.
Yeah, Phil, we got yours on New Year's Day, Phil. You want to hear it again?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Okay, I will not let hatred arise in my mind towards my fellow beings. That's it. Anguttara Nikaya 654.
I have to admit that's still a good one for me.
Okay, Phil, everybody got some subtle aversion
That's
somewhere.
right. It's a good one for everybody.
Yeah. I got a lot of blatant aversion, so we're working on it.
This was Patricia.
You don't want this. Hey. Okay. Hey. Let's get some new one. There are forms cognizable by the eye, sounds by the ear, odors by the nose, taste by the tongue, tangibles by the body, thoughts by the mind. So it goes through it for all of them. So there are forms cognizable by the eye that are agreeable and those that are disagreeable. I will train so these do not persist, obsessing my mind even when they are repeatedly experienced. And Samyutta Nikaya 35, number 134.
So all the sense impressions, all the, so not letting them, another way that it's translated sometimes, not letting them invade the mind and remain. And we know when something has invaded the mind and remains. It's so oppressive. And this means whether it's something we want, something we like, something we find pleasing, or it's something we find the opposite. And this is a, huge cause of our suffering. And it can take so many forms, right? Again, like what someone is saying to us, for example, what we're seeing happening in the world. There are so many scary things happening in the world, but don't fool yourself. It's always been this way. It's not new, and it's not going to stop anytime soon. This is samsara. There's greed, hatred, and delusion. Until that goes away, we're going to be dealing with all those things that are delightful and attractive and frightening and aversive, aversion provoking. So I will train so that these do not persist obsessing my mind, even when they are repeatedly experienced. They don't invade the mind and remain. That's great, Peg.
Ooh. Steve gets a faith one. It says, I will be one who possesses perfect confidence in the Sangha. Samyutta Nikaya 55.3.
Monastic Sangha, or actually this is like enlightened Sangha, can be any, whatever, monastic, lay, person, people, stream entry, etc., to arahantship. Good to hang out with such people. Good to visit them. Good to listen to them. Is this for one me? Okay.
Reflecting and reflecting again, I will purify my bodily conduct. Reflecting and reflecting again, I will purify my verbal conduct. Reflecting and reflecting again, I will purify my mental conduct. Thus should you train yourself. Majjhima Nikaya 61.
Tall order.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, I just put it all on that plate. That's okay.
This is the year.
This is the year. You got a year. Hey, Melissa.
Which one? What? Okay. Okay, I shall be wise. I shall be an inquirer. That's it.
Wow.
Majjhima Nikaya 115.2.
115.2. Okay. I shall be wise. I shall be an inquirer. You know, the Buddha really encourages the deep questioning of the Dhamma. So this is great. They also say that if you don't get enlightened in this lifetime and you're reborn, you'll be very smart. If you do a lot of inquiring.
Okay, that's all.
Anyone have any comments or questions? We have a few minutes.
No, we got like half an hour.
Oh, we have half, whoa, we have a lot of time. Discussion? Thoughts?
I kind of have a question about yours. It reminded me of the sutta study we did on accusation and about receiving feedback. And so I'm wondering how you can kind of distinctly view, you know, feedback from somebody who is not with the faith, who's not with the practice, because that part of the sutta on accusation said just leave them be and kind of not take it to heart, versus I feel like it could be easy for me to kind of push away that feedback from somebody who I personally think is not wise, or, you know, I can kind of use that leave them be as an excuse to like not look at that more deeply. So how do you kind of figure out if you're leaving them be because they are truthfully not giving good
Right, you don't
feedback
want to see it?
versus, yeah, I just don't want to see it.
That's a good question. There's, you know, when we read the suttas, it's useful to look at how the Buddha handles things, because he was an amazing teacher. He was amazing, obviously, amazing person. And when people from other groups, which is, you know, like they're not his students and they're not following the Dhamma as the Buddha knew it, but they would say something to him, and even if it sounded pretty outrageous, he would say things like, I can see a way in which what you're saying is true. And he like talks about that. And then sometimes he'll say, but I don't think that's what you meant. and it's like, so I've used that like to, when I listen, then how can I see how this could be true? Especially when they're saying something about you, then you can, like, how can I understand the perspective they're coming from in a way that I can see how this could be true? And it's not making something up. You're actually trying to like look at what's true. And even if that isn't what they meant, you know, you're learning something. So I would say our opinions and views of people really color how we hear from them. It can really color what we hear from them. If we can let that go, like, you know, sometimes people would be really outrageously horrible, like the Buddha's cousin Devadatta. And yet when Devadatta and his followers came to the Buddha to talk about, it's actually the collection of things that Devadatta wanted the Buddha's, he wanted to confront the Buddha and get the Buddha to reject his idea so that he could create a schism in the Sangha. But what's so interesting is he comes with his people after trying to kill the Buddha more than once. And the Buddha knows all this. And the Buddha talks to him just like he would talk to anybody else. He doesn't just automatically dismiss this guy. He listens, he hears him out. He talks to him about why what he's saying isn't what he's not going to do it for these reasons. Just the way he would talk to anybody. And it's like, okay, can we set aside our views and opinions? Not that you don't want to, I don't want to say color everything roses and act like you don't know what this person's, where they're coming from and what their, you know, capabilities are in terms of harshness or whatever, but you don't have to be in that space when you're listening. And if you're not sure, you can just say, I'm going to think about this. And then, you know, just to see if you can really put yourself in their shoes to try to see, because we human beings, we have delusion. And it's hard to kind of like skirt around that cloudiness to see clearly what we're up to. And it's much more important that we see clearly what we're up to than, you know, what other people are up to. It's so much easier to see in other people, even the same defilements we have. We may not recognize we have them. So that's what I would try. Just really try to listen, try to see where they're coming from. Yeah, good question. Oh, thank you.
Could you all hear Ayya okay with this setting? Okay, good. I'll just leave it on that one.
Okay, if you have any problems hearing, let us know. We're playing with the microphone settings. So.
And you could hear Alex pretty well. Yeah. Okay. Great.
Okay, good. Any other comments or questions? Any questions? Were there any instructions you wanted that you didn't get? It's not usually how it works, is it?
Well, I got the one about having good companionship and good comrades and good friends or something.
Good friends, good companions, good comrades.
Yeah. And
oh yeah, that came out of the sutta with Ananda.
Yeah, and it came out of a different one where the Buddha's talking about that one too, Anathapindika or King Pasanity. I can't remember what.
King Pasanity.
Yeah, so it's all the same idea of like, oh yeah, Kalyanamitta is the whole of the holy life kind of idea. But I was thinking about like, I don't know, hanging out with pretty good people in general.
How are you going to improve this? Huh?
Yeah, so I was thinking like, okay, so does that mean like the Dhamma talks I listen to, like which teachers do I want to listen to this year that would be good for me now? And, you know, what do I want to feed my mind in terms of watching the news or whatever, like how much should I be listening to NPR in the car to stay awake when I'm driving, like what other kind of like companionship is around and enough. And then like the internal committee, which ones am I making friends with in there? All that aversive one or, which ones, so I don't know. I think a lot of these you have to kind of play with because they're not so blatant, but you can still find a way to make them pertinent. So even if it sounds like, nah, okay, whatever, it's very short and it's like, there's still stuff in there to work with if you look hard enough. Yeah. But I still think you don't really need yours.
Well, it's kind of interesting because it's sort of the same idea, isn't it? Listening to the Dhamma, really, really investigating the instruction you got, and not just dismissing it, kind of like, oh yeah, I know that.
Yeah. My initial.
I mean, as soon as I picked that one out and I read it, she's like, oh, you don't need that. Well, let's see. Let's see. I bet there's a way to improve this.
Because my initial reaction to mine too was like, oh man, introvert problems. I don't wanna.
There's
make friends. What?
That's another thing about hearing people's perceptions of us or their feedback. It's like when someone talks to me and I have an immediate negative reaction about it, then I know I have to look at it. I don't want to see that. That's a real strong indication that I need to step back and really pay attention. Val?
Thank you, Ayya. I am wondering about the one that I got, how to work with it a little bit more. So mine, I'll read it.
Yeah.
All right. I will develop and cultivate the liberation of the mind by altruistic joy, make it a vehicle and basis, carry it out, consolidate it, and properly undertake it. So I've been thinking since I got it, I tend to go towards negative mind states, especially fear and anxiety. And this morning, I actually was really pleased because I think I realized on a little bit more of an intuitive level that, I should really be spending my mental energy in positive mind states. And then I thought of my instructions for the year, joy and altruistic joy. So that's one idea that I have for working with this and cultivating it. I'm curious if you have other ideas.
Yeah, I think it's the same kind of thing that you're talking about. It's like really, really trying to understand, develop, embody mudita. And mudita is probably the Brahma Vihara that gets the least attention most of the time. And for a long time, I only really heard about it as a kind of a antidote to jealousy or envy. Like that feeling of negativity or something around someone else's accomplishment or good fortune. And then you bring in the mudita, trying to be happy for them. That is useful, but it's just it's like a sliver of what mudita is about. And to think of mudita as a Brahma Vihara, this is a divine abiding. This is a mental state that is so filled with gratitude and appreciation for what's good, anything good, the good things we've done in the past, the good things that that are in our life now, the good things we see other people doing, even the good things of people that we find the character mostly reprehensible. Is there some good that we can find? Is there good there to appreciate? There's a sutta where the Buddha talks about someone who, and I'm not going to be able to tell you the details, but it's like, there are these three things, three aspects to what someone's doing. Maybe we could, and it might even be, they have good, they have bad bodily conduct, but they have good verbal conduct. And they can enter states of concentration sometimes. And so he said, they're blamable on the bad bodily conduct, but they're praiseworthy on the good verbal conduct, and they're praiseworthy on being able to enter states of concentration sometimes. And it's like that, like we can see in ourselves the blameworthy and the praiseworthy. We can see in others. And when we're developing that Brahma Vihara, that mental state, that dwelling, that abiding in mudita, we're really accentuating the good. And that's a perfect counterbalance to the aversion. And it's such an important practice because as human beings, we're wired to focus on the negative.
Yes.
Evolution has developed us that way so that we stay alive and procreate.
Yeah.
It doesn't care at all about whether we're happy. So to be happy, we have to see the good. And let the heart be immersed and swelled up by the good, by the, really expanded, and the inspiration full and flowing over. And then there's no room, there's no space at all for the aversion.
Okay.
And the Buddha says that too, when we're contemplating or we're infusing ourselves with these Brahma Viharas, we're not doing any bad things. We're not cultivating anything bad, So I think it's a perfect practice for what you've been going through, you might say, or the phase.
Yeah. It was interesting to get it. I remember feeling kind of shocked because I totally was expecting to get something about equanimity or conceit or self-identification, something along those lines, because that's what I've been working with, and hadn't even considered mudita. Although 2 or 3 years ago, my practice, I had very strong mudita in my practice, or at least I was cultivating it. And I like what you say about we're evolved, we're hardwired to go to the negative, and I feel like, yes, I'm very, very highly evolved, but very unhappy. Not working for me. So okay, I like be a sponge, a sopping wet sponge for mudita.
Yeah, sounds great.
It makes me think of like if you need like an intermediate between the mudita and the the sutta you were talking about made me think of what I call the "it could be worse" sutta. The monk there's this monk, he's pretty highly attained, and he wants to go to the scary country where he's from. It's like a really rough kind of, think of it as a gang city, kind of like it's really rough, and he wants to go, and the Buddha's like, oh, but what if they, say bad things to you? And he's like, well, at least they're not throwing stuff at me.
Right.
At least they're not, and he's like, what if they do that? Well, at least they're not stabbing me, all the way to like dying. And he's like, well, some monks have to look for an assassin, and I don't even have to. It's great. So
Yeah, I do remember that sutta. I've heard
Yeah.
it one time. So yeah.
Yeah. So it's like they could be doing worse things. Might help you get to the mudita if you can't quite go directly there.
Right.
Worse.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Nancy?
So I shared the same sutta with Wunmi, the MN61, that said purify everything.
Mm-hmm. Body,
No.
speech, and mind.
Yeah, I'm a little overwhelmed. Where do you start with that? And is there more direction on what they mean by purifying body, speech, and mind?
Yeah,
What does it?
first of all, you started a long time ago, so good to acknowledge that. You've been working on this already. And yeah, it's really, I think, when you think about bodily conduct, it's those first three precepts of not killing, not stealing, and no sexual misconduct. And so reflecting on, are there ways that I could refine that? Verbal conduct, of course, are those four components of truthfulness, avoiding harsh speech, divisive speech, frivolous speech. There's always refinement that can be cultivated, and just having the awareness there to do that. And then the mental conduct of right view, letting go of aversion, letting go of longing. So really the specific list is these 10 wholesome and 10 unwholesome things that the Buddha lists in literally hundreds of suttas. If you can find it in this list of 10 in the Anguttara Nikaya and the Samyutta Nikaya. I think it also shows up in some places in the Majjhima Nikaya. And it's those, exactly what I described. Especially if, like, I don't know if you have an electronic version of the wisdom published suttas, and I'm not quite sure how Bhante Sujato translates it, but if you search on the word longing, you'll probably find many instances of these 10, because that word of longing, like setting aside longing as the mental activity. So it's a little, like the shot. Well, that's not quite right. It's a broad net. It's true. It's a lot, but that's what we're supposed to be doing. Purifying these three areas: body, speech, and mind. So it really, it's really a deeper perspective on sila. Sila really runs deep. It's not a simple thing. And the more we know, the more we understand, the more we develop, the more we see the importance of sila.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Carol?
Thank you. My sutta was Samyutta 10, no, excuse me, Samyutta 2010. And it's about training in advance, training, I guess, body, speech, and mind in advance of situations. And I always thought that was a good one. I said it was a good one for me, especially at work, where I tend to get annoyed with people at times. My difficulty is when I am tired or not feeling well, I lash out. And then I beat myself up afterwards for acting that way. And I dislike my, I just don't like that. And I don't know what to do. How
Well,
does one work
yeah,
with that?
you really said it. So Ayya just pulled yours out of the thing. I'm going to read it so we get it's I will enter situations with body, speech, and mind guarded, with mindfulness set up, restrained in my sense faculties. And I mean, I have this too, like you wake up in the morning maybe and you don't feel so good and the mind is kind of grumpy. And then I say to myself, I have to be very careful now. Don't talk.
Well, my problem is it's frequent. I'm not a youngster anymore. I'm 62. I'm also struggling with rheumatoid arthritis.
Yeah.
And my doctor has me taking these infusions of medicine that's like chemotherapy. Many times I drag myself into work and I'm on thin ice. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I get to work and sometimes I see laziness that's like somebody 20 years old being so incredibly lazy. And I just lose it because here I am 3 times your age, sick and old, and I'm doing way more than you. And it's just, I lose it. And then I just get angry at myself because I'm not following the teachings. I'm not following the path. And it bothers me. And I
So can I
don't
ask you a
talk.
question?
Yes.
Is it your job to reprimand the lazy worker?
No, it's not. But sometimes it slips out because
Okay, so this is important to think about. It's not your job. You don't have to do it. You can just that is not me. That is not mine.
Yes.
Right? And think about it ahead of time. Reflect on that.
Yes.
Train yourself. What am I going to do when I have this feeling in my body and feeling in my mind? What am I going to do? It's not me. It's not mine. Whatever's happening over there with the 20-year-old, whatever, it's not me. It's not mine. And I'm not going to speak. I'm only going to speak when it's relevant to the work I need to do. And I'm going to do it kindly, no matter how I feel. So it's a very hard practice, but it's very important. This is a real training. This is renunciation.
Yeah, it's incredibly difficult because sometimes they'll be standing right next to me, goofing off on the computer.
Yeah, and you just put a big curtain up there in your mind's eye. It's like, this is not me. This is not my circus, not my monkey. Just let it go. I love that phrase.
I know. And it's like, I still, I can't retire. I have a couple more years to go, and it's like, so I just got to.
But this is such valuable training.
It is.
Don't think of it as a burden. Think of it as an opportunity. This is a chance. When we get caught in that, where we're really up against it, we're really, really being pressured, that's when we have a chance to excel. That's when we have a chance to really train the mind, train the conduct. You can do it, Carol. I have confidence in you. You can do it. But this idea of, I will enter this situation with my body, speech, and mind guarded. I'm going to really be mindful and have those sense faculties restrained, which means not my circus, not my monkey, not my problem, not my anything, not me, not mine. And you're like really preparing yourself for that.
Yeah.
And also remind yourself of the danger. When we are harsh and we're telling somebody off, or we're letting our faculties run wild and our speech go, we're creating negative karma. We're creating karma that's going to come back to us, and we don't want that.
Absolutely. And that's what I
Yeah.
say to myself. And I'm just thinking, well, I had a treatment about a month ago, right before we went to Thailand. And I'm feeling it right now. I'm just like, I'm at rock bottom in terms of energy. Like, I don't even want to go to Australia. I really don't, but I have
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
So I got to get through at least 5 months is when it should start wearing off, which is a long time when you feel like this. So, yeah, but I need to, because it only seems to be at work where I'm struggling the most. So, yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
you're
and
right.
I empathize. I mean, it's so hard with physical challenges. I mean, the body really has such an impact on the mind. And
Does.
yet, how do we make that separation? Yeah, this is the body. The body feels ill, but I'm not going to let the mind be ill.
Yes.
So do everything you can to get rest. Pamper yourself. Be a little more lazy. So what? You know?
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you so much for your help. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Take good care. I hope you really enjoy the trip, and it is an opportunity to kind of have some time off and some time with your daughter. Yeah, I hope it all goes really well. Yeah. Joyce?
Oh, thank you for that wonderful last conversation. That was just incredible. I could use some help on my resolution here. What I have is AN 5.56, and what I wrote down is I will be intent on wakefulness, and it has just kind of a general quality. And I would just like to have some specific suggestions on how to work with that.
So when you look at the text, if you haven't already, there's a list of things. This is part of the gradual path. And so when you see it in there, there's moderation of eating, and there's, like the gradual path, where it starts, how you start developing, and then this one that kind of got highlighted for you, wakefulness. It has various aspects to it. The wakefulness of just, being present and attentive, hearing the Dhamma, being present and attentive in meditation, really having strong mindfulness and clarity, clear comprehension, sampajanya, and then wakefulness, you can take it all the way to waking up from our delusions, really using it as a, like any moment, like, am I really present? Am I alert? Am I awake? Am I available to the Dhamma? Am I available to the person I'm talking to? Am I really present with them? Or whatever the specific situation is.
Yeah, that's really helpful, and I'll go back and I'll read the rest of that sutta.
Yeah. And when you think about moderation in eating and moderation in sleeping, we want to get the right amount of these things that support the whole system so we can practice well. But then we can take it, like I said, we can take it deeper than that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, I see your message there, Ling. So understandable. Okay, friends, we're getting close to the end here. I really appreciate everyone's practice. You're just so on it. And, when we get together and we share these things, and we can really inspire each other. It's great. Thank you for your dedication. Yeah. Lots of mudita.